We are coming to you from the city beautiful Chicago, Illinois, where tonight WGN Sports presents White Sox baseball. It's Paul Konerko, Adam Dunn, Alex Rios, and the Sox as they get set to butt heads with Robinson Cano, Alex Rodriguez, and Joe Girardi's New York Yankees. Hi, everybody, and welcome. With Steve Stone, I'm Ken Harrelson. We get set to bring you Game 2 of this three-game series. In the opener last night, Jose Quintana was just outstanding. We won that ball game 8-1. So the Sox breaking that 10-game losing streak. 1 in a row was better than 11 in a row. But the Yankees have been putting some funny-looking lineups out there. They got a little better lineup last night, of course, with Alex in there. But one guy who's a constant in that lineup is Robinson Cano.
It's amazing to me that they're still pitching to Robinson Cano, because when you look at these lineups, you realize he would be the guy you would pitch around, and yet you look at the numbers for the year, and there's still something special. He's hitting .288. He's hit 21 home runs. He's driven in 70. This is the leader of this team offensively with 4 All-Stars disabled. Yet Cano continues to produce. He's going to be a free agent. Lifetime against our Sox, hitting over 300. So he's a man to contend with. And Chris Sale, even though it's a lefty-lefty matchup, has got his work cut out for him.
Well, Chris Sale against Kuroda. Kuroda right now is the best they've got.
It's going to be a terrific matchup tonight. Hiroki Kuroda is a pretty good pitcher. He's 10-6 this year with an ERA that's special. And it's that splitter that really makes him something. He's 2-1 lifetime against our ball club, and he's throwing the ball pretty well. As far as Chris Sale is concerned, he's probably the best 6-11 pitcher in the history of the game. His ERA is spectacular. He doesn't give up anything, but unfortunately he's had no offensive support. Yet Chris Sale has done it, just about everything you can do. 155 strikeouts, only 31 walks. Hopefully tonight he gets the same offensive support that Quintana got last night, and we win the second game of the series.
Everything you said was true. All right, sit back, relax, and strap it down. White Sox baseball coming your way.
Event, which White Sox infielder Gordon Beckham, along with members of the White Sox Volunteer Corps and employees from Constellation, joined together to refurbish Young Women's Leadership Charter School on Chicago's South Side. Volunteers built flower beds and filled planters, as well as painted the facade of the building. The service event was part of the Environmental Sustainability Partnership between Constellation and the White Sox. To learn more about the Volunteer Corps, visit whitesox.com/volunteer corps. Stay tuned because lineups and first pitch will be back after these messages. Your home for the most live sports. Tonight's game's available in Spanish on your SAP audio setting, provided by 97.5 FM ESPN Deportes, Chicago's first and only FM Spanish language sports radio station. It's a humid night for baseball, 78 degrees as the White Sox take the field, and we'll take a look at how Joe Girardi is going to line up his Yankees tonight. Brett Gardner leading it off with Alfonso Soriano hitting second. Then it's Alex Rodriguez, Robinson Cano, who's done a great job against the Sox career-wise. Vernon Wells back in his familiar outfield spot. Then it's Nix, Nunez, Adams, and Romine rounding it out. The White Sox defense is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. Diaz, Danks, and Rios in the outfield with Gillespie, Ramirez, Beckham, and Konerko in the infield. Josh Fegley with the nod behind the plate. And Chris Sale on the hill. Chris looking for win number 7. His ERA still below 3. This is his 21st start of the year. He's completed 3 of them. And opponents hitting a very, very respectable 223 overall. But look at the walk to strikeout ratio. It's just about 5-1, which is among the league leaders in that department. The umpires for the game tonight: Alan Porter behind the plate, Greg Gibson is at first, Jerry Lane is at second, and Hunter Wendelstedt is at third. So with the White Sox struggling and Chris Sale throwing the ball as well as he can possibly throw it, he's facing a Yankee team that's playing for their existence in this race. And Joe Girardi realizes they got to start winning soon because that wild card is starting to go away. So they've thrown the ball around the infield. We're ready to play baseball. I'm ready to turn it over to my play-by-play partner, Ken Harrelson.
Hi, Stevie. Thank you. And once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to White Sox baseball right here with WGN Sports. So happy you could join us for Game 2 of this 3-game set and Game 2 of this 10-game homestand. 3 with these guys, 4 with Minnesota, and 3 with Detroit. So it was good to see some points put on that board early last night. They put 3 in the first, 2 in the second, 2 in the third, and 1 at 8-1. So here's Gardner hitting at 271, 7 homers and 35 knocked in. First pitch of the ball game. Taken for a ball. There's the strike. 1-1 to count. Yankees come in hitting at 240 as a team, but they have a 3.76 ERA. So their season really, except for the 1-loss record, has been very comparable. They have pitched well enough to be in or at the top of their division. Haven't played or hit anywhere near that. We have pitched well enough to be in or at the top of our division, but every other department's just been awful.
Well, you alluded to it at the top of the show, and that is the Yankees are playing some lineups that don't resemble anything like we've seen from the Yankees before.
No.
Tonight, no exception.
Yeah, when you take, the guys we're accustomed, your Jeters, your Teixeiras, and those guys out.
Well, Granderson has missed most of the year,
Yes,
and he's one of their big factors in this lineup.
Yeah. Curtis last year, 43 homers, 106 knocked in. And there's a good speed aboard. He's 18 for 25 in stolen bases.
This entire Yankee team much different than they used to because they're not hitting the ball out of the ballpark with near as much frequency. So they swiped 73. They've been caught only 20 times, and Joe Girardi has been forced to run more than he would normally like to run.
Here's Soriano. Alfonso hitting it 212 with the Yankees, a homer and 4 knocked in. Threw that one right by him.
That ball was up, and that's exactly where you want to throw Soriano. That and maybe even a little bit higher. Soriano loves the ball down, and middle in, down, he can crush it.
Yeah, it's hard to throw him by him down there, but upstairs, pretty easy.
Back to the team he started with, the New York Yankees.
That's chopped foul right side. And here at the ballpark, 330 down the left field line, 335 down the right field line, 375 in the gap, send 400 straight away center.
The wind very much a factor here tonight. The flags are blowing toward left center field.
There's that big sweeper.
That was a pretty good pitch, and he didn't get it from Alan Porter. So if he's not going to get the high one, he better get the low one, because that ball had the whole plate. You can see the direction of a fairly stiff breeze tonight.
All right, 24-year-old southpaw, 6'6", 185 pounds, out of Lakeland, Florida. Decent lead by Gardner. All right, boys, take your time. Bad throw.
Well, Lexi got himself taken out of that play in that he ran pretty much right into Gardner. Now, he was playing Soriano to pull. Probably should have been a double play, but we'll watch it again, and you see Alexi here. Watch as he comes across the bag. He goes pretty much right into Gardner and then throws it wide of the bag, and they don't get Soriano at first base. So a double play should have been made, but wasn't. They'll get 4 outs this inning.
Well, we've seen a lot, unfortunately, of that this year. Plays, not so much the errors. Those have been terrible, 71 of them. But it's also the plays that were not made. They were supposed to be made. The routine major league plays.
But given these teams, even a team as banged up as the Yankees, 4 outs in an inning, you're just asking for trouble.
Alex 1 for 4 last night. Good breaking ball strike. That evens the count at 1. And the count 1-2. 647 home runs. Go along with 2 knee surgeries and 2 hip surgeries. There he goes. safe. So he picks up his first stolen base.
That's his 11th stolen base of the year. He was looking back to see if there was contact. There wasn't. The hand in before the tag. And he guessed right. He went on first move. And so the man that was not doubled is now in scoring position.
And a 2-2 count to Rodriguez. And now he's going to score.
That's where the pitcher has got to yell at Josh Phegley. In this case, Chris Sale has got to yell at Phegley. Dugout. Tell him where the ball is, because Phegley completely lost track of where it was. Soriano faked going to third. Then he stopped. And Josh couldn't come up with it. You see him stop. Now Josh has no idea where the ball is. By the time he does figure out where it is, it's too late.
Well, you said it. Previous pitch. The man who should have been doubled up is on second.
And now it's 1-0.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It's most likely going to go as a wild pitch.
And an earned run.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. You don't turn a double play. So that's the second walk of the inning. Our youngsters last year had just a big privilege. All our rookies and near rookies of pitching in a pennant race, and they all learned a ton from it. You can't learn any more than they did last year, and it certainly has manifested itself this year into good pitching performances.
Each and every one of them is better.
Exactly right. But you also have to wonder, with how bad we played, and the defense especially, when it's going to start to get to them.
Well, for
You
Chris
never,
Sale,
when you were in Baltimore, you never experienced anything remotely close to what you've seen this year.
but I played on a few teams before I got there that weren't particularly good.
Yeah, but you didn't win a Cy Young with those teams.
No, of course not.
Cano, a ball, a strike. That's high. And Diaz going to get it back in. It's out number 2.
Looks like that wind actually kept this ball so that Alejandro could catch it. Reason why he's playing tonight and playing left field is Jordan Danks is playing center because Dan Viciedo jammed his thumb last night. So he'll be listed as day to day. This was last night. Robinson Cano takes it the opposite way. And on the dive, Viciedo jams his thumb. However, he does throw him out at second base.
And Phegley keeps that one in front of him. Wells 3 for 4 last night, and I mean, he just scalded all 3 of them. 2 doubles, a single, all down into the left field corner.
I think he's the happiest man in the ballpark, not for the 3 hits, but the fact that he's not playing first base again, because that was the first time he played it, and it showed it wasn't his fault. He had never been there before, and he did look like a fish out of water.
Yes, he did. But you talking about a gift run, they got one. And after half an inning play, it's the Yankees won, and our guys coming to bat.
Alejandro Diaz, then Ramirez and Rios, with Dunn, Konerko, and Gillespie in the middle. Beckham, Danks, and Fegley rounded out. The defense, and now the lineup behind Kuroda: Soriano, Gardner, and Wells in the outfield, with Nix, Nunez, Cano, and Adams in the infield. Austin Romine, behind the plate, and Hiroki Kuroda on the hill. 10-6, a fine ERA of 2.38 on for his 23rd start. Opponents hitting just 226.
And before we show you our picks to click, you at home select yours. As here's Diaz. Hitting at 273, 13 homers, 45 knocked in. 1 for 3 last night. As the Sox come in hitting at 248 as a club with a 3.92 ERA. Yankees with a gift run in the first, lead at 1-0. And there's first pitch strike from the 38-year-old right-hander. He's 6'1", 205 pounds, out of Hiroshima. One and one to count.
He's not going to overpower you, but when he goes to the wipeout pitch, that's usually a splitter, and it goes straight down.
That ball hit hard by Nunez. So a good way to start. Well, like Pettit last night, Kuroda doesn't want to throw strikes. He wants you to chase that splitter. He wants you to chase the pitches off the plate.
And that ball stayed up in the zone. It most likely was a splitter. Gets it by Nunez, who made a couple of fine plays at shortstop last night. That one hit a little too hard for him, and Andy Pettit just didn't have it. One of the rare nights for a man who was still 100 games over 500. He went just 2 1/3, gave up 7 runs on 11 hits. Most un-Pettit-like.
So here is Alexei hitting at 283, a homer. He's driven in 29. There he goes. He did not get a good jump at all. So 1 out.
Romine threw a bullet to second base. It's a straight steal. You can tell the fact that he never looked back, but he has no chance whatsoever. He gets a face full of mitt for his efforts.
Well, you can see with Kuroda, opponents hitting just 226 against him. And with his stuff, and they're hitting only 226, that'll tell you he doesn't throw a whole bunch of strikes unless he has to.
But he's one of the guys that learned how to pitch a long time ago, when I'm sure he threw a whole lot harder. And it's held him in good stead now because he doesn't have the big fastball, but he doesn't need it.
That one way out of the zone. Now, Romine thought there were 2 strikes. Alan Porter passed him on the side. Said, nah. Gardner short and center, swung slightly to the right, as Vernon Wells is short and right. 2-2. Ate him up. Nix. 2 down. So right now with 2 out, let's check out our picks to click tonight. Manjo, our direction of the crew. Well, they went with Fegley. Steve's going with Adam Dunn. Matt McEntee, Green Golf Properties. And we're going to go with Gordon Beckham. Also Jack Morphees down in Indiana. Zach, who's a 94-year-old Cub fan. But we're going to change it. We're going to convert it to a Sox fan.
At that stage, good luck.
He sounds on the telephone like he's 94 going on 30.
Well, you got to like the spirit.
Yep. Alex. That's a fair ball, Nix. Good play, Jason. So we get the leadoff hit. He gets caught stealing. Retires the next 2 to third, and they lead it 1-0. No errors for us. No errors of, well, that you can put on the board. Jason Nix takes a breaking ball strike. Jason hitting at .235, a couple of homers and 21 knocked in.
One of the things we saw from him when he was here was that he tries to pull just about everything. And he did. He usually leads the league in foul home runs.
I'll tell you what, he hit some bombs just foul here. He gone, back door. 1 out.
Chris is hoping that he gets this all night long. Backdoor breaking ball actually hooked around the plate. When you get that, if you stay there and Alan Poor keeps giving it to him, he will stay there.
And getting a lot of text, a few emails about Avisail Garcia, who we got in the Jake Peavy deal. Well, Avisail down in Charlotte's hitting .389. That's 7 for 18 with a triple homer, 7 RBIs, 2 walks, 6 runs scored since joining the Sox organization on August 1st. And here it is, August 6th.
He's been pretty impressive, but he won't come up here until he can play every day.
Last thing you want to do is sit him on the bench. Nunez pops it up. Jordan's there, 2 down. Sox fans, on Friday, August 10th, first 20,000 fans will receive a Ron Kittle bobblehead presented by Aldi. So purchase your tickets now, whitesox.com or 866-SOX game. That's Friday, August 10th. Here's the first baseman, David Adams, hitting at 198, a couple of homers. He's driven in 11. Takes a strike.
Adams is a second baseman. He's a third baseman. But he just don't have a lot of people to go and play over there.
Well, I mentioned two. A couple of Yankee people yesterday and a couple prior to the game today. This might be Joe Girardi's best managing job. He has had to mix and match and improvise. I mean, he's gone from private to master sergeant, gunny sergeant. I tell you.
But when you take a look at all the guys that went down and the team that he thought he was going to have and the team that he's wound up with most of the time, it's been a tough year for Joe.
And they're still above 500.
They get up to a 30-18 start. And since then, because of injuries, they've slowly started to slide down the hill. And of course, they're in a very unforgiving division, that American League East.
He gone. And that's a nice 1-2-3 inning. He's retired 5 in a row, but we trail at 1-0.
Pitch. And he does a pretty good job of it. Almost getting it there. And the 6 championship trophies on display. Pretty impressive hardware. And a lot of folks standing around getting pictures taken with the trophies.
Seven world championships in total. As here's first pitch, Adam Dunn taken for a strike. Adam hitting at 225, 26 homers, 68 knocked in. And he has faced Kuroda 10 times, has 3 hits, 2 of them stayed in the park. Yeah, if he throws first pitch strike, you got a problem. It's liable to be the only strike you get.
Then it opens up the wide world of stuff.
Yes, it does.
'Cause he can make the ball do a lot of different things.
That's high pop up in the center field. Adam almost hit a grand slam out of here last night. I talked to him after the game. He said that is the hardest ball he has hit all year.
Wrong part of the bat.
Yeah. I mean, he absolutely, that ball was maybe the highest we have seen a fly ball all season long. He said, Hawk, I got every bit of that thing. but it went straight up. Here's Paulie. Takes ball one. Paulie 1 for 4 last night. 2 for 8 with a homer lifetime off the 38-year-old right-hander, Kuroda.
And Kuroda, by a wide margin, has the lowest ERA of any Japanese-born starting pitcher with at least 50 games started. Coming into this year, it was 342. Next closest, Hideo Nomo at 424.
He won't give it on 2-0. He won't give it on 3-1.
Came to the big leagues out of Japan with the Dodgers. Had some decent years, but his best year in the big leagues last year, 16-11, 3.32 ERA with these Yankees.
Well, he reminds me a lot. Throws a little harder, but reminds me a lot of former Sox southpaw, Yankees southpaw Tommy John. Tommy just did not throw strikes. He's liable to retire. Tommy was liable to retire 13 or 14 in a row, and in that whole sequence only throw maybe 10 strikes.
Well, you know he was going to throw the first pitch around the plate. So you didn't want to get into an 0-1 hole, so a lot of guys swung at the first pitch. If they didn't, because he was around the plate with everything, he would get the benefit of a whole lot of calls. And if you were a hitter and he got about 2-3 inches on the outside corner, he's liable to stay there and a little bit further out the rest of the night.
And there is ball 4, so the first walk issue. Well, I'll tell you, he did something that I've never seen done before. He pitched a 2-hit shutout at Fenway Park and never threw an inside strike. 99% of the time, guys who stayed away got killed in that ballpark. He never threw an inside strike, pitched a 2-hit shutout. I don't know how many ground balls he threw.
Now, it sounds a lot like the way Tommy Glavine used to pitch. He used to wear out the outside corner. Very rarely would go inside.
So here's Gillespie, but you hit it on the head that particular day. I can't remember who the umpire was, but he had an umpire that was giving him 2-3 inches off the outside corner. There's ball 1. I believe 287 wins. There's a line shot. It's going to hang up for Soriano, who stays with it and makes a beautiful play, a beautiful catch. Unfortunately for Gillespie, 2 down.
Maybe the greatest improvement in the play of Alfonso Soriano has been on the defensive side. When he shifted to left field at first, he was not very good. In the last couple of years, he's become much more than adequate. He's become a good left fielder.
And here's Beckham. Gordon 2 for 5 last night. Takes first pitch strike. Turns and burns in the count 0-2. Gap out there in left center.
That was a good splitter and a nice stop by Austin Romine. You got a guy who's going to throw a lot of splitters. You've got to have a catcher who is very good at smothering low pitches.
Oh, nice catch. Barehanded, no glove. Got his girlfriend sitting right beside him. Yeah, honey, if I hadn't hurt my shoulder,
I'd have certainly had that one.
The 1-2.
Jordan Danks in the on deck circle, getting one of his rare opportunities to start.
And there's a solid base hit right back through the middle. So Paulie will pull up. And with 2 out, we have 2 on.
This ball was out away, and Gordon stayed right with it. He didn't try to pull it. He took a pitch that was probably just off the outside corner, took it right back up the middle, kept the inning alive.
Take him up, Jordan. Got him on the swing. A gift run, if you're just tuning in, we gave him in the first inning. He walked Gardner. Soriano hit what should have been a sure double play. But a bad throw to first. Then Soriano stole second and scored from second on a wild pitch. That's not going to work. You got to make this guy get the ball up. Start chasing stuff down there. You're going to either kill some worms or strike out. We'll go to the third, trailing 1-0. Sponsored by Jeff Vukovich, your local nationwide insurance agent serving the area for over 34 years. So to join the nation, visit jeffvuk.com. That's jeffvuk.com, because Nationwide is on your side. Austin Romine, catcher, 24 years old. Takes breaking ball inside.
He's actually been starting to hit the ball.
Well, he's a 281 minor league hitter career.
Always hit down there, didn't hit up here. Got off to a slow start, but lately swinging the bat a little better.
Count evens at 1. 1-0 Yankees on a gift run. Another strike. Minnesota shutting out Kansas City 4-0 after 2 in Kansas City. Atlanta leading Washington 2-1. Bottom of the 6th in Washington. Bryce Harper has homered as he gone. Third strikeout.
Third strikeout, and all of them looking.
Bryce Harper hit his 39th career homer, passing Ken Griffey Jr. for third most in Major League history by a player before turning 21.
Imagine if he hadn't been banged up this year. Things would be a lot different for Washington, because they're a different team when he's playing.
Well, he's really the catalyst of that ball.
Yes, he is. They've had a lot of injuries, but the fact that he's been in and out of the lineup have probably hurt them more than any one single player.
Gardner walked to lead off the ball game.
On the verge of walking one more time.
And he walks him again. Third walk issued by Chris.
This, you would have to say, for this year is very much uncharacteristic wildness, part of Chris Sale.
Soriano hit in the 4-6 fielder's choice, which should have been a perfect double play, but it wasn't.
You were part of that rivalry, Red Sox Yankees. What was it like to go to the ballpark and knowing you're playing a team that most of the time you really dislike? I mean, really dislike.
Well, yeah, but see, when we played them, that's off the end of the bat. Jordan now reads it, picks it up, and it's out number 2. You got to remember, after 64, the Yankees weren't very good. 64, they got beat by the Cardinals in the World Series.
Yeah.
65, of course, Minnesota won it. 66, you guys, Orioles, won it. 67, we won it. We used to kill the Yankees. I mean, so they weren't very good.
So it really wasn't, at that point, the heated rivalry it is today?
Not during that little small window there. No, because if we went in there for a 4-game series and we didn't win at least 3, we were really upset. But Mickey, of course, his last year was 68. In fact, his last at bat was against us in 68 at Fenway Park. But Maris had gone to the Cardinals. They did not have a very good ball club. They had traded Pepitone away. Joe Pepitone, a lot of people forget about Joe. He was one of the most talented players in the last 50 years in the American League. Unfortunately, as that got him. So the walk hit batsman, 2 out, 2 on.
Tries to get that fastball in and gets it a little too far in.
No, the big rivalry we had in that time zone was with the Tigers. We used to get in a fight with the Tigers almost every series. It was really heated. They'd knock our guys down, drill us. We'd knock their guys down, drill them. Except for Kaline. You didn't want to throw it at Kaline. You didn't want to upset him.
It's some pretty stout pitchers in those days, those Tigers.
Yeah, they did. Lolich, McLean,
Earl Wilson.
Earl became, after he got the Johnny Sain slider, became a 20-game winner.
And even with lefty here, you still worry about Cano because you can't pitch around him in this situation.
Well, Cano is Cano. There's the strike. He is just a spectacular player. One of the great approaches to the pitch. Guys like him, Longoria, they have that knack of just softly going in to make that approach to the pitch. Nothing hurried, nothing violent, soft. But not on that one.
No, it was a little soft. The problem was he wasn't around as that one swept way away.
Yeah, Chris has got one of those, and once it starts, it just doesn't stop. It just keeps going. That's the way our Wilson Alvarez fastball was. Once it started, it just kept on gaining speed. Here's the 0-2, and there's the base hit. So the throw, he gone. Good play by Fegg on a beautiful peg by Diaza.
Well, one of the things is Wells didn't tell him to slide, and that's somewhat surprising. We'll go to break with a pinpoint throw to the plate, and Vernon Wells does not tell him to get down. And it's a fine throw by Diaza. Gardner's got good speed. The throw is right on the button. He elects not to slide. He thinks he got the foot in before the tag. Alan Porter doesn't. We'll look at it from a different angle.
Like he just clipped him right on the left cheek.
Fine play by Alejandro, and he got him by a butt.
That's right.
Find out what's possible with products and services from AT&T. Rethink possible.
So here's Fegley. Takes ball one. Josh at 203, 3 homers, 11 knocked in. Well, we mentioned Bryce Harper moving in past Ken Griffey Jr., third place, most home runs in Major League history before reaching your 21st birthday. The guy who hit the most was Mel. He hit 61 before he was 21. Next was Tony Conigliaro, who hit 56. He led the league when he was 20. He hit 56 before the age of 21. Harper now with 39. Junior with 38. Of course, Mickey Mantle, he had 36 before the age of 20. One and two. Boy, that was a beautiful peg by Alejandro.
Got the right bounce, charged it perfectly, and threw it right on the button.
Well, usually if you can grab the 4 seams as an outfielder while you're hurrying to make the throw, if you can get fortunate enough, and sometimes it's luck, you get the 4 seams, you're usually going to get a pretty true bounce. But when you get, sometimes you'll grab the 2 seams, sometimes you grab the no seams. That's when you don't know what the ball's going to bounce, how it's going to bounce. Got him at the top of the zone.
That's one of the few that Alan Porter has called at the top of the zone tonight.
Well, with him, we're getting a break that he won't call the top zone, because if you got to cover up and down against Kuroda, you're probably going to get beat.
No, you can't cover down anyway, because I mean, if he throws you a low fastball, well, then he's going to throw you one. But most of the time when you see it, you identify fastball, but it's a splitter, and then it just drops out of the zone.
The one thought you got to have off a guy like this is make him get it up. Make him get it up. Yeah, it was a singles, and then was caught stealing. Soriano, 2 down. And you can watch a game in luxury from behind home plate in the Gold Coast Tickets Club here at US Cellular Field. Gold Coast Tickets, you got a guy. That's Seth Sharon. All the good folks at Gold Coast Tickets. They'll take care of you. That's a beautiful place to watch a ball game. Wow. Food is fantastic. Right behind home plate. Nix has got him. That didn't take long. 1, 2, 3, and we'll go to the 4th. course, Mickey Mantle, Derek Jeter, Robin Ventura, Lou Gehrig. Wow. See the different grains in those bats. So if you're stopping by to see the game tomorrow, stop by out there and look at some of those bats. The great hitters used to get those 3 and 4 grain bats. The fewer the grains, the harder the wood. Then rookies and bad hitters, well, they got the multi-grain bats. 10, 12, 15. 0-1 the count to Vernon Wells. And that's top foul. Like everything else, rich get richer, poor get poorer. As far as the bats go, I was lucky. I had a couple of guys that used to take care of me with bats. Give me some of those 3 and 4 grainers. That breaking ball into left center field, but we got a man there. 1 out. And in that game tomorrow, Hector Santiago against CC Sabathia.
CC's having some problems, and normally he's a handful, but this year slider is not sliding. Conversely, the man you're looking at, Hector Santiago, has had just a terrific year and is throwing the ball very well.
He, like Quintana, is just getting better and better. There's a changeup. It's Jason Nix. Called out on strikes. Backdoor slider. There's the bullet. So Nix, the 1-out double. That's his 9th two-bagger.
He just went out and hooked it. This time, because the ball was outside, he was able to keep it between the lines.
Nunez popped up to center.
Yankees have had 7 different third basemen, 7 different shortstops this year. Just trying to fill a void. Derek Jeter went back on the disabled list. He's played just 5 games all year, and he said this is about as bad as it gets for him. Every time he fought his way back, every time he thought he was ready to go, he came back only to be disabled again. There's the captain of the team, one of the great players in the history of our game, and one of the great leaders in the history of our game.
And all of us are really hoping that he can come back. Minnesota leading Kansas City 5-0. That's James Shields on the bump for the Royals. How about those Astros? Leading Boston 5-2.
They won 2-0 in the ball game last night, and they're giving one of the best teams in baseball everything they want down in Houston.
I tell you, they'll give you 27 outs at 100%. Nunez just did get a piece of that one at 96. Well, Joe Grube, the mayor, just gave me a stat here that's unbelievable. And Chris Sale's last 6 starts, not counting this one tonight, we have given him a total of 8 runs.
I'm surprised it's that many.
That's, of course, we've given him none tonight through 3. Seems like every team's got a guy that wears it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is nasty right there. 2 down.
Nunez didn't like it, but Alan Porter's been consistent with this one. He's been called at it all night. That probably had just a touch of the corner. But that backdoor breaking ball coming from way out over the third base, the left-handed batter's box, I'm not sure how any right-handers catch up to it.
I tell you, Alan Porter, he's really impressive. He called one of the greatest games I've ever seen called. And that was back on June 28th in that Major League record-breaking doubleheader.
The extravaganza?
Yeah, when they beat us in the first game, 19-10. He had to umpire 406 pitches in that game, and I bet you he didn't miss 8 or 9 of them. They ought to give him a postseason award for that. Unbelievable.
Well, there were a lot of those pitches that were hit awfully hard in that game.
Yes, they were.
Allen didn't get a chance to call too many of them.
He saw 406 pitches. That one stayed out there. Adams. Nick's at second, 2 down, 2-1 to count. David Adams struck out his first trip. Free hopper. And that'll retire the side. Go to the bottom of the 4th. It is still 1-0 Yankees.
Visiting WGNTV.com and click on the Game Zone banner for updated stats and information. The Game Zone is powered by St. Xavier University. Success with purpose. Log on to sxu.edu to check out undergrad and graduate degree options.
Alex Rios will lead it off here in our half of the 4th inning. It'll be Rios, Don, and Canerco to face the 38-year-old southpaw Hiroki Kuroda. Spinner drops it over for a strike. Good pitch to hit, but on the first pitch, yeah, let's take it. For the most part. Man, we got a couple of people watching in down at Hope Sound, hoping for a Sox victory tonight. Steve and Chris Norman. Hope Sound, Florida. Beautiful little place.
I think Gallagher's a little unhappy with himself because that ball was well in off the plate. But that's what Kuroda will do to you.
He just doesn't want to throw strikes if he doesn't have to.
He sets up on the extreme first base side of the rubber and seemingly gets a better angle for that splitter.
Well, you mentioned it the other day. We were talking about golf courses. As that's in the center field. And you had asked me about Tiger at Firestone, and I said, well, it just fits his eye. And then you responded, just like pitching. Some hitters just fit your eye.
And some doesn't look like there's any spot at all to throw them. Just, I don't know why it is, but that's what happens.
Then you go to plan B?
Well, yeah, sometimes a little deeper than that, depending on who's hitting.
Here's Adam, popped up to center field. And as a hitter, some pitchers just fit your eye, others don't.
Adam's been swinging the bat very well. And he's been driving the ball to left and left center field as well as straightaway center. Last 6 weeks or so, hitting just about 300. And when you consider where he's come from, batting average is respectable.
All right, my next question, though, was which side did you prefer, first base or third base?
I actually moved depending on the pitch.
That's what I was getting to ask you.
Yeah.
Did you move and adjust?
I started in the middle, and then depending on what I wanted to throw, I would move to one side or the other, trying not to get into a rhythm or pattern so that the hitter could actually see. If I moved to the third base side, I was going to throw a slider. If I moved to the first base side, I was going to try to keep the ball in on him by running a two-seamer. So, but I used to try to get, obviously, the advantage you can get by adjusting.
That's the base hit. That'll Adam. Well, it's not unlike a hitter. You adjusted to make that hitter, so to speak, fit your eye better. It's not unlike a hitter adjusting and moving around that box to make that pitcher fit his eye a little better. They don't do it.
No, they just don't seem to do it near as much as they used to do it at one point.
Here's Paulie. Paulie walked. Outfield straight up, spread out, about equidistant. Maybe a bit of a gap. No, about equidistant. 1-2-0 for their guys. 0-3-0 for our guys. That gift run we gave them in the first inning. Double play that was not turned. And then Soriano scored from second on a wild pitch. So now we have a man in scoring position.
We'll have to see if that's ruled a pass ball. It's ruled a wild pitch. Romine was setting up low and in. That ball was up and away and tipped off the end of the glove. 6th wild pitch of the year. And I would venture to say most of them are splitters in the dirt as opposed to high and away fastballs.
Now pick him up, make it hurt. That ball yanked just foul. Don't mind. See where he sets up. Gillespie on deck. Second of this 3-game set and second of this 10-game homestand. Count 3-1. Well, we told you what Avisel Garcia was doing down in Charlotte, hitting it 389, triple, homer, 7 RBIs. Marcus Semien playing well since being called up from Birmingham. He's a good-looking infield. Also, Brandon Jacobs, who we got from Boston, from Matt Thornton. He's played in 18 games. He's hit in 17 of them. That ball hit hard, but that's a hang Wolfen for Konerko.
Gardner can go get him in center field, although that was not a particularly difficult play.
No.
That's going to send Romine out to the mound to talk with Kuroda.
And it'll bring Gillespie, who was robbed of a base hit on a nice catch by Soriano at left.
This is a sinking line drive. Looked like it's a base hit all the way. Soriano got a tremendous jump, stayed with it, took it right off the top of the grass, and got it back in a hurry.
First pitch strike. Yeah, that you got to commit, and he did. He stayed right with it. We've seen a lot of guys. This year pull up on those low line drives like that.
Well, lately the outfield play against us in a couple of series has turned it around.
It's been unbelievable.
Lorenzo Cain with Kansas City.
Unbelievable.
Austin Jackson with Detroit. David Lowe with Kansas City.
And that Cleveland service. Brantley with a couple of outstanding catches.
That one he made against Gordon Beckham was just an unbelievable catch. The one he made over his head.
We lost 4 straight games because of defensive play in the outfield for the opposition. 4 straight that beat us. Cain put on an exhibition, along with Alex Gordon. That one catch he made in left center field, and Lowe, of course, because that's fouled back. And what we've seen the last couple of years too, Steve, is something that I know baseball lifers, so to speak, like you and I are. We're starting to see outfielders who throw better. Yeah, we had a period there for what, 10, 12, 13 years.
Nobody threw at all.
Nobody threw.
No. And that's why it was a rarity when Kansas City put that outfield together of Gordon, Cabrera, and Frank Coeur. They threw better than anybody in baseball.
Yeah, that particular outfield right there was just about as good as you're going to get in any time frame. you one thing, they didn't lose anything with Kane out there. And Lowe can go get him.
If Kane can stay together, and he's had a history of some leg problems, if he can stay together, he's a huge weapon defensively in center field, let alone with his bat.
Well, we talked earlier when we were playing them, it wouldn't surprise us at all if Kansas City put a run on. And they've done it. What have they won? 12 out of the last 13?
They've been playing great baseball. They've been getting terrific pitching. The exception being tonight.
Especially with Shields on the bump.
And Minnesota's all over them, 5-0 still, top of the 5th.
Full count. Beckham on deck. Detroit leading Cleveland 5-1 after 8 at Progressive Field.
Those are big games. Detroit came back with a 3-run homer by Avila last night.
And that could turn out to be the definitive game of the year.
That could really. It was a difference between 2 and 4 games in the standings. Cleveland was leading 2-0. They had led all the way. They had their closer in. And Detroit came back, beat them 4-2, and looks like tonight maybe the air went out of the balloon.
And there's a shot base hit. Big man is going to be waved around. Vernon Wells with a throw, safe, and this game is tied at 1. Another bullet off the bat of Gillespie.
This little splitter out away and a good piece of hitting by Connor. Joe McEwing is going to run on Vernon Wells every chance he gets. Wells does not have a normal right fielder's arm. Even though the throw is there, it is late. And the good part about it is the trailer, Gillespie, moves into second base in scoring position. So they decide not to cut it. Had they cut it, they're out of the inning.
So Beckham singles sharply back through the middle. I don't know if Wells was in position to make the right position, I say, to make that cutoff. As Vernon's going to throw it to home plate.
Well, Adams is an inexperienced first baseman. And sometimes, if you don't know the strength of the arm of your right fielder, and I'm sure that he's not all that familiar with it, you'll let a ball go through. Or it could very well be that Romine decided that they might have had a shot.
All right, listen to what. There's Adams. Now he's going. And he keeps going from there. Now let's see where he is.
Well, he's got a
no,
chance.
He could have cut that ball.
Absolutely.
That's what you're just talking about. The inexperience.
I think the inexperience cost him the inning staying alive, and maybe cost him the lead.
There's a strike. Yeah, he could have cut that throw off. That was a good throw by Wells.
Vernon for years was one of the premier center fielders in the game. And in fact, the man who was always to his left was Alex Rios. Wells was just a great center fielder with Toronto.
Look at this. Get down. Soriano makes another catch to save a run. Dadgummit. Two good plays by Alfonso Soriano, but we pick up one and we're tied at 1.
words that I don't think a whole lot of people would have thought would have gone together when he first came to the Cubs. But the last couple of years, he's really worked hard to make himself into a guy that is a plus in left field. And he's made 2 plays tonight that probably have kept this game at 1-1. Had he not made either of them, could easily be 2 or 3-1 at this point.
Top of the 5th inning, it'll be Romine, then back to the top of the order with Gardner, then Soriano. Romine struck out, called out his first trip. And I want to send a big White Sox congratulations to former clubhouse person John Bills. His marriage to Jackie. John and Jackie Bills, all the best to you. Good to see John again.
And for all the future Bills you're going to have.
Literally and figuratively.
Yes.
Two-strike pitch. Ball hit hard. Back through the middle. So the 3rd hit. And Sox fans, join us for country music night and post-game fireworks presented by Pepsi on Friday, August 9th at 7:10 when our Sox take on the Twins. So purchase tickets today by visiting whitesox.com/country or calling 866-SOX-GAME. Now we have the final against these guys tomorrow night here. It'll be Santiago against CC Sabathia. So make your plans to be with us. If you can, we'll have it for you on Comcast Sportsnet. Then Thursday will be an off day. Then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it'll be Minnesota Twins coming in for 4 games. There'll be a doubleheader, a split doubleheader on Friday. First game will start at 1 and the nightcap at 7. Gardner has walked twice. And he is 2-0 right here.
And for whatever reason, he's not fitting Chris's eye tonight because he hasn't been close to him. Number 50 is Mick Kelleher, the first base coach. Longtime player in the major leagues, longtime coach.
And longtime good guy.
He certainly is that.
That bunt is foul. Soriano on deck. 1-3-0 for them, 1-4-0 for us here in the top of the 5th inning.
Rob Thompson has gone through his set of signs. Given to him by Joe Girardi, the man you're looking at.
Not a very good attempt right there, and the count evens at 2. And another great job by our buddy John Vincent on the national anthem. John Vincent. Boy, what's the shoulders he's got on him. Cleveland Indians used to have a pitcher named Barry Latman. Who, that's what his nickname was, Shoulders. He was wide. I don't think he's as wide as John Vincent, though. The 2-2. He gone.
That's 5 strikeouts, and every one of them has been called. Gardner knew he wasn't going to be able to hit it. He was just hoping he'd get the benefit of the call.
Soriano 0 for 2, hit into a 4-6 fielder's choice. That should have been an easy routine double play It was a bad throw to first. Then he stole second and scored from second base on a wild pitch, which you don't see that very often.
Only when a catcher will lose track of where it is and isn't alerted to where it is.
Rips that one into left field. So the attempted butt that fails.
Chris got this one down. And it really doesn't matter whether it's in or out for a Soriano's concerned. If you throw this ball thigh high, he's probably going to get a pretty good swing at it.
So here is Alex. He has walked and was hit by a pitch. One out, two on. Hit right at him. That's a hang whoop'em for Rodriguez. He hit it right on the money. Two down.
He got the pitch he wanted in the spot he wanted it. But Jordan Dank's right there.
So here's Cano. He's fouled out to left, and he's singled to left. And on that single, Gardner tried to score from second base. Diaz made a perfect peg to home, and Fegley tagged him out. That fastball at 96.
Well, there's a first and second and two outs. Yankee hitters have scored 11% of the time. Our pitchers have given up runs 24% of the time, just a touch above league average. But big story probably for the Yankees, well below league average. That one gets away again, and if it didn't hit Cano as it bounced away from Fegley, the runners might have advanced. Chris Sale's not the easiest man in the world to handle, and the fortunate part was when it bounced away from Josh, bounced right off the arm of Cano and right down at his feet.
Lays off that breaking ball. Cleveland hitting in the bottom of the ninth, trailing the Tigers 5-1. That's Verlander against Masters. 3-0 taking all the way.
Vernon Wells in the on deck circle. Had a big night last night.
Full count. Well, Vernon last night looked like the Vernon when he had that Toronto uniform on. When he caught everything in center field against us, and every time he got a pitch hit hard, he hit it hard.
He got off to a very good start this year. Then things kind of slowed way down for him, but last night looked like he was seeing everything very well.
Well, everything's contagious in this game, and when those injuries grab the guys, Teixeira and those fellas, and you got to stick some. And there is ball four. That'll load him up, and here comes Coop. Boy, Chris really hided himself.
That was a fastball, and he missed by about 1.5 foot. Very rarely we'll see him on a fastball miss by that much.
But what happens, as you mentioned, the Yankees got off to a good start, record-wise. And then the injuries jumped up and grabbed them. Then they had to start making some makeshift lineups out there. They couldn't get it done. Vernon was going good. All of a sudden, now he tries to do too much, and first thing you know, he forces himself into the contagion of negativity.
They're losing the guys that they've lost for the periods that they've lost them. It's not surprising that they would be scuffling.
Well, Hafner 15-day, Jeter 15-day, Phelps 15-day. That's a good pitcher. Teixeira 60-day, and Euclid 60-day. Teixeira not being in the lineup is a big hurt. 1-4-0 totals on the board with the sacks packed, and that'll do it. Pitch is out of it. We're halfway home, tied at 1.
Yesterday, the Yankees put Jeter on the disabled list for the 3rd time this season. When he does return, he's going to have a chance to improve on his already impressive stats wearing the pinstripes. He's first in games, hits, and stolen bases. Jeter ranks 2nd in doubles and 3rd in runs in New York Yankees franchise history. That's brought to you by Xfinity Home. Get peace of mind with Xfinity Home, the total home security and home control solution that keeps you more connected to what matters most.
Bottom of the 5th and a 1-1 tie. Gordon Danks, Josh Phegley, Alejandro De Aza. Flips a breaking ball up there and misses high and wide. Derek Jeter. Right man at the right place at the right time.
He had one big advantage, and it didn't matter where he played or what the stage was. He had the highest baseball acumen, was the smartest baseball guy on the field on whatever field he played on. And that was a tremendous asset to the Yankee team because he was never out of position and always knew exactly what the team needed him to do when he had the opportunity. I mean, he could hit the ball out of the ballpark, but more times than not, his big runs batted in would come to right and right center field.
One of the greatest inside-out strokes the game has ever seen.
Just terrific.
Well, when he first came in, his rookie season, first time he played against us, He came in 95. We had a left-hander named Mike Bertotti pitching that day. Jeter came up first time. Bertotti threw one right behind his shoulder. That's a good knockdown right there.
A welcome to the league.
Yeah. Jeter gets up and just looked at him for 2 or 3, 4 seconds. The ball gets away. 3-2 the count. He gets back in the box. The next pitch, he hit a rocket about a foot and a half by Bertotti's head. I looked at Wimpy and I said, Wimpy, we might be seeing something here.
You were seeing something, okay.
It was that look. You know that look Jeter's got.
Yep.
He gave Bertotti that look. That ball lined right at him. That's a hang wolfing for Danks.
Our boys have to try to get it to somebody else. Soriano tonight has been catching everything in sight.
And of course, 95 also, I remember a right-hander, the rookie that they ran in this ballpark right here. The Yankees ran out to the mound. Started that game against us, went 8 innings, struck out 11. As that's up the middle, takes a nice bounce for Nunez. Low throw, can't get him.
So the question now is it a base hit?
I'd give him a base hit on that, going that hard to his left.
We will have to see. No decision yet. Again, probably a play that an experienced first baseman makes. It does go as a base hit, the 360 spin. And the stretch by Adams, but he can't come up with it.
So the 1-out hit, and here's Diaza. But that rookie right-hander they ran out there, and his name was Mariano Rivera.
Yeah, but you know what? He could never make it as a starter.
That ball.
He did pretty well as a closer, though.
You know, you just don't see every now and then, maybe every decade or two, maybe every quarter of a century, you see a youngster out there and you see the ball just come out of his hand the way it did. It was almost like Joe Namath throwing the football. That quick release he had. Flick of the wrist and throw it 60, 65 yards with ease. Had a little tribute from Mariano, which they're doing. Uh-oh. Too many of those in the last few months. We're into the 6th, tied at 1. It's a good crew they sent us for this series. And a big media series, obviously, because of yesterday. That's the most media that I've seen here since '05.
In non-postseason, you're not going to see many more of the satellite trucks than you saw for the ball game yesterday.
They want something. And while they do that, organize a group outing of 20 or more for a Sox game during the season. Receive savings off the individual game ticket price. You can enhance your outing by upgrading to our new Miller Lite Bullpen Party Porch, pregame patio party, Diamond Suite, or one of our other great party areas. So 312-674-1000 or WhiteSox.com. And of course, that's the Bertucci boys, Bobby, Bruno, and Handsome Anthony. That's where they roam. They'll take care of you. Like Silk Process over at Bacardi at the Park. So here's Nix. 1 for 2, 1 for 3.
We started talking about the tribute before the game, and it was from Mariano Rivera. White Sox honoring him and his illustrious career and what he's meant to the game of baseball. But even before that, what he did was something special, and that's what he's been doing the last trip into every city. And it was around 4:30 or so, and he got together, told the ball club that he wanted to meet with the behind the scenes people. His quote was, "I don't want to meet with anybody who wears a tie to work." And so a lot of the guys who have worked here for years, whether it be the grounds crew, in maintenance, and a number of other things, had a chance to meet with one of the all-time greats. And Mariano signed baseballs for him, talked with him, had his family there.
Roy Rivas.
Yeah, it was, I mean, Roy, I don't believe I've ever seen Roy as happy as when he showed me the signed baseball on the sweet spot from Mariano Rivera. Roy was down there, and he had never met Mariano before. And he is a wonderful man outside of being one of the greatest pitchers that ever lived. But I think what he's done all around baseball, this was a wonderful idea.
It's one of the classiest things I've ever seen in my entire career. David Adams has struck out and grounded to short. And as Steve mentioned, he's doing that in every city. He gave 20 people. He met with 20 of them. That's what he wanted to do. Gave them all an autographed baseball. Sox presented him with a scorecard of that 95 start that he went 8 innings in.
That was his second major league win.
Yeah, struck out 11. There's a strike. The count 3-1. That's into center field. That's a can of corn. And a nice, quick 1-2-3 inning. We're at the bottom of the 6th, tied at 1.
Mariano Rivera to the Jackie Robinson Foundation for $4,200. Mariano Rivera will be the last active player to ever wear the number 42. They gave him a box score from that ball game. The Yankees won it 4-1, his second major league win. And they gave him assorted pictures from around the ballpark. They got to meet with a few more of the folks before the game. You know, that first year in 1995, Rivera started 10 games out of the 19 that he pitched and never started another one as a Yankee. So they saw something in him. Said, okay, well, pretty good starter. I mean, he was 5-3 that year. But they made the right choice.
Well, you just, again, you don't see the ball come out of a guy's hand with that kind of electricity. It just jumped out of his hand. You know, you see a lot of hard throwers come up. No big deal. Guys throwing, you know, 98, 100, 101.
Well, he was the easy 96, 97.
Exactly.
I mean, really easy.
I mean, he just flipped his wrist and there it was. That's God-given. It's something you cannot teach. Alexei, Rios, and Dunn. There's a base hit. Nix was playing even with the bag off the line a little bit. Meanwhile, leadoff man aboard.
This ball is up and away, and Alexei, who stands right on top of the plate, able to cover the outside part of the plate. Take it into left field. So the go-ahead run at first base with nobody out.
There's Alex. He's gone out to Nix. Nix made a good play on him. That was in the first inning, and he went out to center leading off the fourth. Well, that's just like, as I mentioned earlier, you watched Joe Namath. You saw him play in the Gator Bowl in Alabama. And you knew then that little short, quick release he had, and the ball just didn't come down. And he got there in a hurry. So Rockets. And for 6 years, arguably, Joe was as good a quarterback that ever lived. Just like Koufax for 6 years, arguably the best pitcher ever.
And different parts of the body. With Koufax, it was the elbow. With Namath, he lost his knees. And still had the great arm. Always had the great arm.
Yeah.
Just had no mobility, and eventually left the game long before he probably should have. And for Sandy Koufax, certainly left the game long before he should have.
Well, the Dodgers, Sandy told them that he was going to retire, and this was before spring training. The Dodgers offered him $100,000 if he would delay his announcement until after spring training. And Sandy wouldn't do it. He announced his retirement. He told me that if he had pitched another year, he was going to cripple for the rest of his life. Look at this. A little chopper. So now Alex will pull up at second.
Going the opposite way. Turns into goal. And it could very well be with a known splitter and sinker ball pitcher on the mound that maybe out in front of home plate might be a little bit harder. You know, the lack of rain and all. Because that ball seemed to trampoline over the head of Adams at first base.
Hey, it's our house.
Home field.
It's our house. That same ball in 1967 was stuck in the mud in front of Eddie Stanky. Thing like a swamp. First pitch strike to Adam. Adam has popped up to center, singled, and scored. That was on Gillespie's single.
Adams been seeing it real well. And this should be a pretty decent matchup for him because Kuroda likes to keep the ball down. That's where he lives. And Adam is a dead low ball hitter.
They're going to go second, and that'll be it. So they get Rios. But runners at the corners, one out, and that'll bring up Konerko. Well, Adam has been hot for the last month. Give me your take on all the things that we've read the last few days about the possibility of Texas and a couple of other teams making a run at him.
Well, I would think at this point, the way he's swinging the bat, the question would be, number one, he becomes much more valuable because I'm pretty sure that he would clear waivers with his contract for next year. Then you come and you play, I mean, and we don't know any of this for sure because we're not privy to these conversations,
right.
But usually what happens is you play let's make a deal. How much of the money would you be willing to take if I traded for him? And then that's dependent on what type of prospect you're going to get or prospects you're going to get in return. And that's how deals are made after
the deadline.
Well, after the deadline, where you have to have waivers on any player to trade them. Now, there's some guys that you just cannot get through waivers.
Right.
So they become out of the equation as far as moving them is concerned. But other guys, and Adam would be one of them, that most likely would clear.
Paulie has walked and lined hard to left center, deep left center. Went after that pitch nicely. Took it. 1-0.
Paulie thinking about hitting the ball in the air, and Kuroda doing everything that he can to induce that ground ball. Got Nix playing him as dead pull hitter. He's backing over toward the line. But you've got Nunez and Cano both playing him up the middle.
That's a fair ball. Cano, they cannot turn it. Sox lead at 2-1.
Terrific play by Jason Nix. And Paul realizing that if he can beat this play at first, it's going to be a run. He has to give some ground. Makes a solid throw, and Cano has to take a step back. And Paulie running as hard as he can run. He knows that's the go-ahead run if he beats the throw.
It was an excellent, a valiant effort from Nix and Cano. Cano from underneath. He and Beltre, the best two throwers in baseball. So here is Gillespie. A line shot, robbed of a base hit by Soriano, and then a RBI single. So he has hit 2 bullets off Kuroda. Two 7-0 for us, 1-4-0 for the Yankees. One to count, and a big White Sox shout out to Lou Rocco and in Orlando, Florida. Lou and all the great folks at Global Sourcing International watching in tonight, pulling for a White Sox victory. They won the opener last night 8-1. And the final tomorrow night. Make your plans to be with us here. Hector Santiago against CC Sabathia. Steve told you Sabathia has been struggling.
That slider has not been sliding all that well for the big man. There's a look at Sabathia. who normally is going to give you anywhere from 17 to 22 wins. Going to give you 250, sometimes a little more than that innings. He's going to take the baseball. He always takes the baseball.
Well, he is just a huge man, tremendous athlete. And you could see from the first time you saw him on that bump that he was, as big as he was not a thrower, he was a pitcher.
6'7", usually in the neighborhood of around 300 pounds.
One in, two out. 2-2. Full count. Beckham on deck. 23,826. $27,948 last evening. Nice gap out there in right center if he can find it. Only thing is Brett Gardner can close those gaps in a hurry. Payoff pitch. That ball was absolutely tattooed. Good play by Adams. Meanwhile, we pick up one. We'll go to the seventh, leading by one. Run we gave them in the first, we tied it in the fourth, and just took the lead in the sixth. So Austin Romine, the catcher, has struck out and singled sharply back through the middle.
Well, Chris tonight hasn't had much of a feel for it, and yet 1 run on 4 hits, that's been it. Been able to drop that slider usually when he wants to. Hasn't had command of the fastball like we normally see. There are the numbers, the 4 walks, the 1 hit batsman. But he's really become a battler. Nova is loosening up in the pen. He has been a starter at times for this Yankee team.
Well, again, probably in Girardi's managerial career, without question, the most he's had to zig and zag.
It's tough when you pencil in a ball club you think you're going to start the season with, and it just disappears. So a good strike, and one of the few times that Chris has actually recorded a strikeout swinging. That ball was way out of the zone. Again, he can't pinpoint the fastball, yet Romine went after it.
So here's Gardner. 2 walks and a strikeout. That strikeout has turned out to be one of the key at bats in this ball game.
With 2 base hits and a walk in the 5th inning, if he'd have gotten on, there'd been some problems.
Strong arm of Beckham got him. Beautiful play by Gordon.
But Gordon realized that he couldn't throw that ball from the side and still get Gardner, knowing how fast Gardner can run. So he straightened up and he poured it across. Chris tries to backhand it. Gordon stays over the top and gets it there a full step ahead of Brett Gardner.
There's Soriano. 1 for 3 with 2 outstanding defensive plays in left field. And has scored the only Yankee run. Scored from second base on a wild pitch. Three and 0. Hang loose. Don't throw him a cookie. Taking all the way. And that ball hit deep into center field. Jordan is there, right in front of Picardi at the park. Hauls it in. So hang with him. That's out. Hit Wrigley. Meanwhile, 7th inning stretch, we lead it 2-1. get ourselves a 2-1 lead here in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Chris Sale just happy to have a lead. And now that he's got it, I'm pretty sure he's going to be more than equal to the task to keep it.
Tell you what, he is some kind of competitor.
Especially on a night like tonight. I mean, look, the overwhelming stuff he's always going to have. But tonight, with no real idea about the release point for his fastball, he still held him to 1 run through 7.
Well, it shouldn't have been 1 run. It should have been no runs. That was a gift run. Double play should have been routine. Double play was not turned. Then he scored from second on Soriano stole second. Scored on a wild pitch. But it will go down as an earned run.
And number 1 starters are hard to come by, and Chris Sale is just that.
Gordon with the 2-1 count. Gordon has singled sharply back through the middle, and then he was robbed of the base hit on a beautiful play by Soriano. And that would have been another run. That ball hit deep into left center field. Soriano looks up and it's off the wall. 1 hop over the fence, so a ground rule double by Beckham. Sully's happy.
Gordon's happy. One of his line drives found a place. A 4 drive of the game is a rocket to left center field. Soriano's been catching everything, but can't catch up to this one. It's hit too hard. Hits the track, bounces out.
Now Jordan's got a job to do. Jordan has struck out and then lined hard to Soriano and left.
Well, he hasn't shown that he can pull Kuroda yet. And if you have to bunt this ball to Nix, you got to get Gordon to third base.
Whatever floats your boat has got to get it done.
Yep.
Adams. Nobody at third, but it's foul.
Tonight's game is available in Spanish on your SAP audio setting. It is provided by 97.5 FM ESPN Deportes, Chicago's first and only FM Spanish language sports radio station.
Roman's going to tell Jason, look, if I can get to it, you get back to the bag. One to count. There they go with the wheel. Just jabs at that one. So very quickly. 0-2.
Not a bad idea defensively. In fact, it's a good idea because on that play, with both Nix and Adams along with Kuroda charging straight ahead, with Nunez covering third, it's almost impossible to lay down a successful bunt.
I love the wheel play. I love it. And I'll tell you what, I would bet you, if you had a way to find out, I would bet you that the White Sox in the last 25 years have run fewer wheel plays than any team in the American League.
Well, there's a lot of variations to that play, and I like the pickoff off that play.
One out. Got to make him get the ball up, and Jordan just could not do that.
Another splitter. Second strikeout of Danks. Only the third strikeout of the night for Kuroda.
Here's Josh. He struck out, and then had an infield single. As I mentioned earlier, against guys like Kuroda, you got one thing on your mind when you walk up to that batter's box. Make him get it up. If you don't, you're going to probably go 0 for 4.
Kuroda's got a good hard slider.
As we talked about in the open, Kuroda right now is the best they've got.
Very good pitcher. Knows how to pitch. Doesn't have great stuff. But he's got good enough stuff where you beat the ball into the ground a lot.
One and two the count. Wells is short and right. Lays off that one nicely. 2-2. Gardner straight up in center.
Wind is blowing out toward left center field all night.
Two down. Sox fans, on Saturday, August 23rd, be sure to stay for an Elvis-themed post-game fireworks display presented by St. Xavier University. St. Xavier University, success with purpose. That's sxu.edu. St. Xavier University. So it's up to Alejandro, who is 1 for 3. He singled to lead off the bottom of the first and then promptly was caught stealing. Fastball at 95. Up out of the zone.
That was by far the best fastball he's thrown tonight.
Very quickly to count 0-2.
Ready to deliver pitch number 105. And still nothing wrong with the stuff. So there's been no decrease in anything to this point.
Look at this. No! Just fouled. Dadgummit.
Just missed a two-base hit. Hunter Wendelstedt right on the line. Fought it off the end of the bat, trying to protect. And unfortunately, it slices foul. That'd have been the first run batted in for Alejandro in a while. And would have been a huge run in his game.
One and two the count.
He's still got 94, 95 left in the tank.
At 38 years of age. Chops that one foul. Well, he came over in 08 to the Dodgers. And in that short season over Japan, he put some innings in. 190, 205, 212, 189, 83.
It's Larry Rothschild you're looking at, the pitching coach, longtime pitching coach of the Cubs and former major league manager of the Tampa Bay. Well, at the time they were the Devil Rays.
And another foul. 2-8-0 for our Sox. 1-4-0 for their Yankees. Once again, a reminder, be with us tomorrow night. Hector Santiago against CC Sabathia. So make your plans to be with us. If you can't, that game will be over Comcast Sportsnet. Big gap out there in right center if he can find it. 2-2. He wants a little chit chat. I mentioned Troy beat Cleveland 5-1. Indians at home this year against Detroit are 1-7.
Huge 4-game series. The Indians seemingly had it in the bag in last night's game, which would have probably set the tone for the entire series, facing Verlander tonight.
Yeah.
Justin was better than Masterson. Verlander beat Masterson. That was a tremendous matchup.
That ball hit hard. He's not going to get that one. There comes Beckham. He's going to score on the double by Diaz, and our Sox lead it 3-1. Yes. Good at bat by Diaz.
Abia number 46, and Alejandro really battled that time. He finally got one down to his liking. It was away. Kuroda had stayed away most of the at-bat. This time he crushes it over the head of Wells. And for Chris Sale, sitting there on the bench, when you see a leadoff double in an inning, only to see a couple of strikeouts with the thought of perhaps leaving him right there, that becomes a huge hit.
No question. How do you think it makes Jordan and Fegley feel now? It bails them out.
They picked him up.
That's it. Pick up your teammates. Now they're going to have a bit of a lengthy discussion.
And Larry wanted a couple words with Alan Porter. Apparently there was a pitch or two that he was not particularly happy with. David Robertson loosening up in the pen. Hard throwing right-hander.
Well, pitchers like that. But that pitching coach out there or the manager, they have a few words with that umpire.
And if he waits around long enough, obviously the umpire is going to come out there. And, you know, if you're not animated, you can usually say a couple of things.
You can get your point across.
Yeah.
You mainly get your point across to your pitcher. Pick him up. Don't stop now, boys. First pitch strike. Alexei led off last inning with a single. Came around to score. He's 1 for 3. That one at 94. Now he wants to have another talk.
Yeah, they haven't talked quite enough.
St. Louis leading the Dodgers 2-1, top of the 7th. Then St. Louis. Had a good rip underneath it. Cincinnati beat Oakland 3-1 at the Great American Ballpark. Mets beat the Rockies 3-2 at Citi Field. Pittsburgh 24 games over, 68-44. They beat the Marlins 4-3. Phillies over the Cubs 9-8 at Citizens Bank. Braves beat the Senators 2-1 in Washington.
Atlanta keeps on rolling right along.
Bottom of the first in Anaheim, Texas, and the Angels are tied at 2. Darvish on the bump.
The Braves, winners of 12 in a row, now have a 14.5 game lead. Yikes.
What are you saying yikes for? You picked them.
Well,
this spring.
They look pretty good to me. But I didn't think they'd be able to run away like this.
I didn't either. Well, they wouldn't if Washington hadn't got crippled up. That's a good team, the Braves. That's a very good team. We went 2 out of 3 for them, and then go out and lose 10 in a row.
I talked with Chip Carey today, and he said, unlike the way we looked, and Chip is their television broadcaster, their play-by-play man, he said, unlike the way we looked at your ballpark, he said, since then we're literally playing as well as we can possibly play. We've gotten everybody back. The team is healthy, and they just go out there every day and do whatever it takes to win.
There's a chopper, 3-hopper. Good play by Nunez, or else Diaz was going to score, but we pick up 1. We'll go to the 8th, leading 3-1. And guess who came to the plate?
It's hard to tell, isn't it?
First pitch to Alex. Curveball strike. Alex's walk was hit by a pitch. Then in the 5th inning, a couple of guys on, in fact, he just rifled one right to Jordan Danks in center field. Hit it right on the money. Three 9-0 for us, 1-4-0 for them. Close pitch, didn't get it. And the count 3-1. No walks. Again.
Nate Jones, Donnie Veal listening in the pen.
He can hit as well. And he will. So the leadoff single. And you can join the 2013 Sox Pride Club, the official online fan club of our White Sox baseball. For members only ticket opportunities, a special membership gift, and commemorative photo, as well as exclusive perks throughout the season, all for just $29.95. So visit SoxPrideClub.com to join today. Here's Cano, 1 for 2. Line drive, and that's out number 1.
Got that ball inside on him. Not an easy thing to do.
Well, Cano's got a great approach against left-handers, especially tough left-handers. You watch him over the years. He wants to stay closed, and consequently he'll jam himself some, which is what good hitters do.
Well, that is going to be it for Chris Sale. Undoubtedly, with the right-handed part of the lineup coming up, it's going to be Nate Jones. So the fans here really appreciating the job of Chris Sale tonight, as they have all year long. He got 3 runs, which for him is a bonanza. And to this point, he's made it hold up. So a tip of the cap, and we'll step out and be back after these messages. Our throwing right-hander seemed to have found it about 20 appearances ago, and since then he's been close to unhittable. But he's not going to be facing Vernon Wells. He's going to be facing Curtis Granderson. So Granderson representing the tying run, with A-Rod at first base and 1 out here in the top of the 8th inning.
Granderson has faced Nate one time and he's 0 for 1. 1 out. Looking for it, got it. Couldn't do anything with it at 99.
You can look for it at 99, but if it's upstairs to a left-hander, it's tough to get on top of it.
Very quickly, the count 0-2, especially coming off that bench.
When you're not used to it, and Curtis Granderson are used to playing every day, it becomes a mighty difficult task. In fact, this is the first pinch hitting appearance all year.
That pitch there at 100.
This one almost gets him. Tries to throw a slider. Does not get on top of it. Last thing you want to do is hit this guy.
He gone. He knew it. 2 down.
That's a slider he wanted on a pitch before. A backdoor slider. Granderson gave up on it. And he just looks at one that has the entire plate.
Lyle Overbay has come out to hit. Jason Nix. So 2 out here in the top of the 8th inning.
Overbay was hitting pretty well, then started playing just about every day. Hitting .251. 2 for 6 with a homer and 2 driven in as a pinch hitter this year, so he's had some experience in this department.
First time Overbay has ever seen Nate Jones from 60 feet 6 inches. That one at 100. Nice catch.
Nice left-handed catch. One hand, left hand, reach down. Nice job.
That one at 99. Now feels slightly to the left. Gillespie way off the line and back at third. He gone. That one at 100 miles an hour. So we go to the bottom of the 8th, leading 3-1.
been an errorless game as Chris Sale went 7 1/3. Didn't have as good control, but he really battled him tonight. Alex Rios extended his hitting streak to 8 games with his single in the 6th. Your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Honda dealers, as reliable as the cars themselves. Curtis Granderson stays in the game in right field. David Adams shifts over from first to third. Lyle Overbay stays in the game at first base. And David Robertson on the hill. Record 4-1. Terrific ERA of 1.79 on for the 49th time. Opponents hitting a paltry 184.
So here's Alex. 1 for 3 with that single in the 6th. Down on deck, Konerko in the hole. There's a shot right at him. That's a hang Wolfham for Rios. And fans, you've known for years that StubHub is a great place to find the seats you want to see the White Sox play live. Now they've added StubHub fan rewards so you can earn a little extra with your tickets like seat upgrades. So head to StubHub and get your White Sox tickets today. Adams 1 for 3 with a run scored. They put the shift on.
Addison Reed getting loosened up and ready to come in to try to nail it down.
That ball hit high and deep. Soriano got the bead and the ball right in front of the fence. Two down. That is the final from Kansas City. Minnesota shuts them out 7-0. Albers over Shields.
Well, the bigger plays of the night came because Paul Konerko ran as hard as he possibly could down the line and beat a double play throw to plate a run. The go-ahead run in the ball game, that coming in the 6th inning. That was a very strong play at third by Nix, who got it to Cano, but Paulie beat it by a half step.
Yep. Cano. Great effort to turn it.
They did the best they could possibly do, considering that Nix had to retreat on the ball. It was down the line at third. Ball was hard hit. Paul realizing that if he doesn't go with everything he's got, inning-ending double play.
1-2. Houston was leading Boston 5-0 and is now 13-7 Red Sox.
Apparently the Boston's got a little aggravated about last night's 2-0 loss.
Check. Well, Miguel Cabrera got his 100th RBI tonight. He becomes the 5th player in history with 10 straight seasons of 25 or more home runs, 100 or more RBIs, joining Alex Rodriguez, Jimmy Fox, Lou Gehrig, and Albert Pujols.
That's something.
That ball is smoked. They're not going to get that one, but they will get there and hold him to a single. So Paulie, center cut a couple of them tonight.
That went on the outer third and hit right on the button.
So here's Gillespie. He's hit it hard all 3 times tonight. Takes breaking ball strike.
Robertson's fastball looks a lot like a slider. It comes in, moves into the left-hand hitters, away from the right-handers.
And to count 0-2. Well, the Yankees schedule hitters lower third of their order: Nunez, Adams, and Romine. Two out. And the 0-2 pitch. Nice block by Romine.
Yeah, you might have to worry about still is the one guy that Joe Girardi has not used coming off the bench, and that's Ichiro. So we're likely to see him as a pinch hitter in the ninth. Tony Pena, former Major League manager, and the right-hand man of Joe Girardi standing next to him. There's a look at Ichiro getting loosened up. I would say we're going to see him. Absolutely.
2-2. Ichiro, 39-year-old future, 2-time Hall of Famer.
Just an amazing career overall.
And that's a can of corn into left field. That'll retire the side. We will go to the ninth, leading 3-1. Dealers for their support of local youth baseball leagues. Local Chevy dealers are supporting over 30,000 young players in their communities through the Chevy Youth Baseball Program. Since 2010, Chevy dealers have been providing numerous leagues with equipment kits, instructional clinics, and much needed financial support. So from the big leagues to the youth league, Chevy is truly the official vehicle of baseball.
And Addison Reed comes in to try to nail it down. He's got a 2-run lead. Reed at 4-1. The ERA 3.80 on for the 46th time, looking for save number 27. Just 12 walks with 50 strikeouts and 47 in the third innings.
Nunez with each row on deck. Nunez has popped to center, struck out, and bounced back softly to the pitcher. Takes the bunt, takes the strike, and the count 0-2.
He was thinking about it, and he got a good pitch to bunt, a low fastball. But he pulled the bat back, and now he's in the big hole.
Laid off that one. Top of the 8th in St. Louis, still 2-1 Cardinals over the Dodgers. Two hopper. Big out. So here comes Ichiro. He was 1 for 4 last night. I was watching him hit underneath in the cages prior to the game for about 4 or 5 minutes. And I'll tell you, it was an interesting session. He had the guy standing very close, throwing awfully hard from a very short distance.
Well, he's always had a unique approach.
And get foul. It won't. So Diaza quickly gets over, makes another good play, holding him to a single.
Third pinch hit of the year as Ichiro, because he doesn't strike out a lot, one of those guys who can come off the bench, make contact, and like all great hitters, usually finds a place for it to land.
Well, it's amazing how strong he is. In every swing, there's a big grunt. There's a good strike, and it's a fast-paced workout. I mean, the guy's getting it and throwing it, and hard, really hard, from a real short distance, maybe from only 25 feet, 30 feet.
Well, some of the batting practices that he's taken, when he takes it on the field, he can sit and hit 10 balls in a row out of the ballpark, a long way out of the ballpark.
Oman can't get it? Oh, yeah. We've seen him go up on that glass and Safeco a lot of times. Well, Pinello tells the story when they first got him. In spring training, they go for about 2 weeks, and he's just pinging everything to the shortstop, third baseman, left field. Shortstop, third baseman, left field. He gone. 2 down. So finally, about halfway through spring training, he asked Ichiro, he says, "Can you hit the ball out of the ballpark?" Ichiro just shook his head yes. He said next at bat he hit it about 430 over that right field wall. So here's Gardner. 2 walks, a strikeout, and then a beautiful play by Beckham to get the speedy Gardner at first base on a chopper up the middle. As Steve described perfectly, because he had to straighten up to get him. They were not holding him on, so that'll be indifference. Soriano on deck. And there's a strike, so it's even at 1. 2 balls and a strike. Gardner has 7 homers and 35 knocked in. Gardner's been a good player for these guys.
He can really go get him in center field.
He did not go. 3-1.
But Gardner is surprisingly strong. He hit one off the wall last night. Let's see if Addison tries to stay away from him.
There's the base hit. So Ichiro will score, and it's the 3-2 ball game.
He didn't stay away. He got this one middle in and up, and Gardner drives in run number 36. And now he represents a tying run. And he is one of their speed burners.
18 for 25 in stolen bases. And here's Soriano, who is 1 for 3. Check that, 1 for 4. That slider right off the end of the bat. He has faced Addison 1 time, and he is 1 for 1. There he goes. That ball hit high and foul for a souvenir. Meanwhile, the count 0-2. All right, Stevie, 0-2. What are you going to do?
Well, I do 2 things. Number 1, Gardner runs, and I'm not concerned about him. I throw him a fastball, and I throw it inside and up because I've thrown him 2 sliders away.
Right underneath his hands?
I'd like to get it
a little higher.
A little higher.
He gone. It was a fastball up. And this ball game is over. So the Sox make it 2 in a row over the Yankees. They win last night 8-1, win tonight 3-2. And is it ever great to see Chris Sale get a win?
It wasn't easy.
No.
It was a struggle. But Addison Reed comes in and nails it down. And the last out of the game, after 2 sliders, you see Fegley wants a fastball up. He threw it up and right by Soriano, who's late and gone. Save number 27. So stay with us. We'll be back with a little more.